Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And we've had a very lively debate with contributions from 17 backbench speakers to my calculation, and it's been extremely interesting debate. I won't mention them because time is short, Madam Deputy Speaker, as a result of the interesting debate. I do have some sympathy for the Universities Minister in all of this, Madam Deputy Speaker, because we all know that the decision to scrap maintenance grants for the less well-off students in favour of loans was really made by the Chancellor, not by the Universities Minister. Now, I know that he and the Chancellor are old friends. It goes back to the days when they were penniless students together, having to scrape by on their student grants and meagre Bullingdon Club dinners. But I find it hard to believe that the Universities Minister went to his old friend, the Chancellor, and said, having been appointed as Universities Minister, I've suddenly decided that we were wrong to have maintenance grants for the less well-off students, and it would be a great idea for the worse-off students to have the most debt after they've been in university. Now, I might be wrong about him, but he doesn't seem to strike me, up until today, as a kind of person who would really think that it's right to change the system so that, as the British Medical Association points out, medical students from the poorest backgrounds could graduate with £100,000 of debt. £100,000 of debt, according to the BMA's briefing for this debate. Now, he doesn't really strike me either as the kind of person who thinks it's all right to go back on promises made by Tory ministers when the new system was introduced, because it was David Willetts, after all, who said that the tuition fees increase was progressive when they introduced those proposals, precisely because of the higher education maintenance grant. That was the argument that was made, and neither does he strike me really as the kind of politician who would cynically pursue policies which penalise younger people who are less likely to vote Tory, or even less likely to vote at all, than others. And despite what he said today about page 35 of the Tory party manifesto, I don't think the Universities Minister would think that it's okay, really, to carry out this kind of major change of policy direction without explicitly putting it into your party's manifesto, so that the public, including young people, can see what they're voting for or against. Is he really the kind of politician who, having done all this, would then slink away from debating such a major change openly and properly on the floor of the House of Commons in government time? I may be wrong, but I never thought he was that kind of politician. I never thought he was that cynical. I might in a moment. I never thought he was that cynical, but I think we know someone who is that cynical, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'll give way to the honourable gentleman.
I don't know if the honourable gentleman was referring to me. I just wonder whether he could flick back through his archive and find where in the 1997 manifesto the Labour Party had the introduction of student loans in the first place, because I can't remember seeing it. Well,
the honourable gentleman told us how hard he'd worked himself in his speech and his contribution to the debate. And as someone from Cardiff, with an accent like he's got, I absolutely acknowledge he's a very hard-working individual. He will know that a general election was fought following that decision being taken and before they were introduced. Now, we all know that the Chancellor prefers governing from the shadows, and his shameless betrayal of previous promises and the shabby manner in which this has been handled in Parliament bears all the hallmarks of the current Chancellor of the Exchequer. Being young in Britain, Madam Deputy Speaker, should be a time of opportunity, a time when opportunity knocks, instead of which the Chancellor is introducing an opportunity tax. His proposals are, firstly, an assault on aspiration, they're an assault on opportunity, and they're an assault on those who want to get on in life, which is why we oppose them, and also why the Welsh Government, under Labour First Minister Carwyn Jones, is keeping maintenance grants. And by the way, for those who say that this only affects England, as seems to be the decision we have before us today, they should think again, including Welsh Conservative MPs. There are nearly 9,000 English students studying at Cardiff University. Out of 30,000 students.
Point of order, Mr. Stewart. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm sure the Shadow Minister wouldn't wish to mislead the House, but he just said that after the 1997 election, tuition fees were not introduced until there had been another general election. That's not true. They were introduced in 1998, and having said they wouldn't introduce it, they started on the process 12 weeks later.
The honourable gentleman is making a point of debate, not a point of order for the Chair. We have very little time, Mr Brennan.
Well, I would have been happy for an intervention from him, but actually I was asked about student loans, not about the matter that tuition fees as he raised. Now, students who in constituencies like Cardiff North are registered to vote in Wales, but subject to the decisions which will be taken after this debate, even though their local Welsh MPs after this debate can have their votes nullified under the constitutional monstrosity that is the evil procedure that the government has foisted upon this House. Now, who's going to be affected by these measures today, Madam Deputy Speaker? Well, first of all, we know that from the IFS, and I quote, the poorest 40% of students going to university in England will now graduate with debts of up to £53,000 from a 3-year course rather than up to £40,500. This will result from the replacement of maintenance grants. And of course, as I've just pointed out, it isn't just students going to university in England, it's also students who are attending university and registered to vote in Wales. In fact, I think there won't be lost on those students in Cardiff North at next May's Assembly elections in those kinds of constituencies. I'll give way very briefly.
Very grateful indeed to the Honourable Gentleman. Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker. I would be very encouraged if the Honourable Gentleman would also note that with universities in Northern Ireland having been capped at the number of students that they can take, that there are hundreds and hundreds of students, very able students from Northern Ireland who take up places and are very happy to do so in English universities, and it is an absolute disgrace that this measure should be deemed exclusively English because it affects my constituents and many parents and students from Northern Ireland.
And I'm happy to acknowledge that, Madam Deputy Speaker. Now, it's not as if this policy will save that much on public finances, despite the claims made by the governments in the long run. The IFS say the replacement of maintenance grants by loans from 2016-2017 will raise debt for the poorest students, but do little to improve the government's finances in the long run. The truth is, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Chancellor is fixing the figures, not fixing the roof. Now, I'm pretty sure that I would never have gone to university myself had there been no maintenance grant available, let alone being the first from my family and from my comprehensive school to go to university and to go to Oxford. I know there are many others in this place for whom this is also true. The government must accept that it's still the case for many, many thousands of young people. Indeed, that's why, as David Willett said, maintenance grants were part of the structure when fees were tripled to £9,000 per annum under the last Tory-led government. Madam Deputy Speaker, this decision is mean in spirit, it's underhand in its execution, and it'll be tragic in its consequences for many young people, and I urge the House to reject it by supporting our motion.